I really don't have any observations to make about the Ensign matter. Senator Ensign continues to serve. He's a member of the Finance Committee, been active in the discussions there. I don't think today is a day to make any observations about the matter. It just appeared in the newspaper today. I don't have any observations to make about the Ensign matter today. At the risk of being redundant, I really don't have anything to add about the newspaper article that was in the New York Times today.
That's the top Republican in the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell, today pointedly and repeatedly refusing to say anything supportive whatsoever about Nevada Senator John Ensign, whose political fortunes have gone from dismal to humiliating to him now being on resignation watch because of an adulterous affair so dramatically mishandled it may ultimately land the senator in prison. But the dramatic new revelations in the blockbuster 4,000-word expose published on the front page of the New York Times today have also ensnared another Republican senator whose self-proclaimed integrity and piety have also been dragged down into the gutter with John Ensign. The second senator has been caught on tape lying to reporters about something he now admits. It's lying about the fact that he ended up being the financial broker who tried to get Senator Ensign a cheaper payoff rate for his mistress. It's Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma. He's an evangelical, he's an ordained deacon, and he lived with Senator Ensign at the C Street house in Washington, a house that's maintained as living quarters for conservative Christian members of Congress by a secretive religious group that's called the Family. We've discussed the Family a lot on this show. The Family actually lists the C Street property as a church for tax purposes, and it was at that church, C Street, where Senator Tom Coburn learned that his housemate John Ensign was having an extramarital affair. And it was there that Senator Coburn made the extraordinary decision to try to help John Ensign contain the damage from that affair with cash. According to an interview that Senator Coburn himself gave the New York Times, while Ensign was still sleeping with his mistress, Coburn became Ensign's negotiator, his financial negotiator. A lawyer hired by the mistress's husband wanted a cash payout to the mistress and her family as compensation for the harm caused by the affair. Senator Coburn personally negotiated the financial deal, trying to get Ensign the best possible price for his sins. What you're looking at here is the first proposed cash settlement. This is what the family of John Ensign's mistress wanted Ensign to pay as compensation for messing up their family and costing both the mistress and her husband their jobs, since they were both employed by Senator Ensign. The cash demand was $8.5 million. That was presented to the upright and pious Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, who acted as Ensign's negotiator in the deal. Coburn's reaction to that proposed settlement was no way. We don't know if he has experience negotiating senators' payoff rates for their extramarital affairs, or if he just thought that he could get his friend in this case a better deal. But according to the Times, the mistress's family lawyer, quote, gave Mr. Coburn a figure just under $8.5 million. Mr. Coburn dismissed that as ridiculous. The mistress's husband came back with a lower number, about $2 million, which Mr. Coburn passed on to Senator Ensign. It's really a heck of a newsflash for the people of Oklahoma, if you think about it. People of Oklahoma, your U.S. Senator, the deacon, the anti-abortion, anti-gay, holier-than-thou senator who went so far as to demand that Schindler's List not be shown on television because it contained nudity. Senator Tom Coburn has been spending his time in Washington brokering cheaper payoff rates for senators to their mistresses. And he's been lying about it. This summer, after the husband of Ensign's mistress did a local TV interview in Vegas in which he said that Senator Coburn had tried to negotiate a payoff to the mistress and her family, Senator Coburn categorically denied that he had done any such thing, telling reporters from the front stoop of the C Street house that he, quote, never made any assessment of paying anybody anything. Those are untruths. Those are absolute untruths. That was Senator Tom Coburn in July. A direct quote there. That was Senator Tom Coburn lying about something to which he now admits. I mean, take your pick. Either Senator Coburn is lying now when he tells the New York Times that he did try to broker a payoff rate for Senator Ensign to pay his mistress, or he was lying in July when he denied doing exactly that. Take your pick, Oklahoma. In July, when Senator Coburn said he had not tried to broker a cash deal between Senator Ensign and his mistress, Senator Coburn's hometown paper, the Tulsa World, wrote an editorial about their senator's role in the affair. It started with this line, quote, "We take Senator Tom Coburn at his word when he says he did not advise Senator John Ensign to pay off his married mistress. It would have been completely out of character for him to do so." Maybe it's time to revise that assessment of his character. Joining us now is Jeff Sharlet, author of The Family, The Secret Fundamentalism at the Heart of American Power. He's also a contributing editor to Harper's Magazine. Jeff, it's nice to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Rachel. Great to be back.
Is there anything about The Family, about C Street, where both of these senators lived, that could give us some insight into why these guys were talking about a cash payout to the mistress's family?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, you start with the core principle of the family, which is this idea of biblical capitalism, that everything in the world can be understood through the invisible hand of the market, apparently, even these kinds of relationships. But more to the point, there's a former family member, a guy named Ben Daniel, who went around and he interviewed wives of members of the family. And again he heard this same thing, that these wives said, in my husband's life, first comes his loyalty to his brothers in the family, then comes our family. And we see Ensign and Coburn acting like that. That's the idea, that your first loyalty is to protect your brother at any cost.
When we look at the distance between what Senator Coburn said this summer and what he's just told the New York Times, there's two great chasms across which he has leapt. One is that he now admits that he played a role in trying to broker a financial settlement between Ensign and his mistress. And the other is that he had previously said he would never discuss his conversations with Senator Ensign, that those were privileged, that they were privileged in part because he was an ordained deacon. Now Senator Coburn is telling a very different tale. Do you think that reflects that he knows he was doing something wrong? What might explain the change in story that he's telling?
You know, Coburn has made his reputation as a guy, whether you agree with him or not, he's a guy who speaks his mind. He's got a lot of candor. And he's a guy who's sort of known for his sense of character. And as you say, it's time to think, what does he mean by character? Members of the family say, what we're really doing is we are being like Jesus. And yet when you look at their core beliefs, again, they say that Jesus had one set of truths for the general public and another set of truths for those whom he anointed as a special chosen, men like Coburn and Ensign. I don't think Coburn thinks he's doing anything wrong. I think he thinks by telling what is convenient at the right time, he's being like Jesus.
In terms of Senator Ensign here and his potential criminal or at least ethical liability, there's this issue of him arranging what appears to be illegal lobbying by his former staffer, who was his mistress's husband. One of the meetings that Senator Ensign arranged for him was with the Transportation Secretary, Ray LaHood. It took place earlier this year. I wondered when I read that if this might be a C Street connection. Do you know?
Yeah, it is. Ray LaHood's been involved with the family for some time. You can find his name in their documents, and it goes back even when he was in Peoria politics. He doesn't live at C Street, at the C Street house, but you've got to understand that the family is much bigger than the C Street house. It's just one of their properties and one of their many ministries. So once again, you see them putting into practice what they preach, which is that politics should take place through these behind-the-scenes relationships, one brother in the so-called family helping out another. And if you have to bend rules to do that, that's fine, because you're serving, as Senator Coburn says, a higher authority.
Jeff, do you know for sure, does anybody know for sure if Senator Coburn or Senator Ensign are still living at C Street? It seems to me there's no real easy way to tell.
We don't, but actually a little while ago, a friend of mine went by to check on things at C Street and noticed that newspapers were piling up on the front step, and there was a dead plant that hadn't been watered, and you have to wonder if the family hasn't decided to pull up stakes there and move down the road, open up shop somewhere else. C Street is now a location on political tours of Washington.
Well, I guess connected to that, in the big picture, Jeff, we've had all these scandals that started as sex scandals and became something bigger. The John Ensign and Tom Coburn scandal, of course, the Mark Sanford scandal, which also had a family and C Street connection. And it's all unfolded just over the past few months. And the way that this has all happened, do you think that this has all weakened the family's influence in Washington? Has this changed who they are and what they affect?
I think it's actually, in a sense, actually pushing them further rightward. Senator Coburn actually denying everything in the Muskogee Phoenix wrote a little column in which he says, look, the family is very bipartisan. My friend Senator Mark Pryor is a part of it. And we've talked about Pryor on the show before. Pryor now denies his involvement. So you see some of these conservative Democrats, they're running away from the family. That's weakening them. At the same time, this is a group that's been around for 70 years. It knows how to weather scandal, sit tight, and hope for the press to move on. And that's why it's great the Times is doing this, and you've been on top of this story.
One last question for you. With Senator Coburn, I used some very harsh language in the introduction to this interview, and I did it in a considered sense because I think that he deserves it. I think that it's quite clear from the record that he's either lying to the New York Times now, and he didn't broker that settlement, or he was lying when he categorically denied it in June. It does not seem to me that he's got any wiggle room. He was lying one of those two times. As you say, Senator Coburn has really staked his political career in part on his professed character, his professed integrity, and a lot of that tied to his professed faith.